Hi, I'm Jo, and I'm going to do the top 5 Wednesday tag. The tag for this week is the top 5 books you wish you had read earlier. I've always been an avid reader, so I don't think that I really could have read some things much earlier than I did. So this was a difficult tag for me to come up with these books. A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine Winkle. I just read this year, a few months ago, because it was on my bookcase, and I thought this is a book that everyone needs to read, right? So I read it, I enjoyed it, but I wish I had read it earlier when I was younger, a preteen, tween, the appropriate age group for this book. I think I would have got more out of it. Reading it in my early 30s, I think I got different things out of it than if I had read it when I was 10 or 11. But still, I wish I had read it earlier. I think it would have spoke to me differently. But again, I know I've mentioned it in other videos. I'm not a fantasy, sci-fi type person. That's the reason why I've never picked up this book. Along the same lines, I wish I'd read The Catcher in the Rye by JD Salinger earlier, when I was a teen. I read it in my mid-20s, and it just did not speak to me at all. I was not an angsty teenager. I think perhaps if I had read it as an angsty teenager, I may have felt like, oh, someone gets me, they understand me, my life is so difficult. But reading it as a mid-20s married mother, I was kind of like, get over yourself, kid. Buck up, buttercup, you know? It just wasn't my thing. I understand it's an important piece of literature. It's just not that important to me because, again, when I read it. But I do love the cover, and it is in my library. The third book I wish I'd read earlier was The Princess Bride. How many times have I seen this movie and I never even knew it was an actual book? I just read this in February. I loved it. Of course, the book is better than the movie. There's so much more detail and so many things that you just can't put in a movie. It just doesn't translate. So I really loved this, and I strongly suggest reading this book. Even if you didn't really care for the movie, the book just has so much more in it. It smells so good. And this is an author that I wish that I had read earlier, just because I think that reading this author would have exposed me to other authors of this era. And that is Ernest Hemingway. This book is A Moveable Feast. I read this book a couple years ago, so my late 20s. I loved Hemingway. I love Hemingway. I went through several of his books, which then led to F. Scott Fitzgerald and just the whole Lost Generation. I really enjoyed reading about the Lost Generation, reading biographies about Hemingway, and reading about just the Lost Generation in Paris. I just loved that era and this group. So I really enjoyed Hemingway, and I wish I had started reading him earlier, simply because it would have exposed me to more authors that everyone should read. But again, if I had read him in my teens, I probably would not have appreciated it or explored the Lost Generation, just because it wouldn't have interested me as a teenager. The last book that I wish I had read earlier is an ebook. It's Minimalist Living: Decluttering for Joy, Health, and Creativity by Genevieve Parker Hill. I got this off of Amazon. It was a free book. I heard that this author offers this book for free as often as Amazon will let her. I wouldn't consider myself a minimalist because I like my stuff, and I know minimalism isn't about getting rid of everything and only living with the bare essentials, for the majority of minimalists, it's not. I mean, it's about simplifying. And that's what I really enjoyed reading this book. It made me think about why I keep some of the things that I keep. I wish that I had read this a year ago, or even 2 years ago, before we moved. Moving would have been so much easier, I think, if I had read this. I got rid of a bunch of stuff before we moved, but we've only been in this house for a year, and even in this past year, I have gotten rid of so much more stuff. And every time I get rid of stuff, I think, why in the world did we carry this with us? Why did we move this box of stuff that I haven't even looked at in a year? Stuff that I don't want. It gave me an idea of some of the theories of minimalism, some of the line of thought about it. It gave me a lot to think about. But it's a lifelong process. This just helps me to dip my toes in the water, feel better about myself, and help me get rid of some things. So I wish that I had read it before we moved. So that was my top 5 books I wish that I had read earlier. Let me know if you are doing this top 5 Wednesday video tag so I can check out your videos. And let me know a book that you wish that you had read earlier, whether it was a self-help book or a book that just was a classic and you wish you'd read earlier, or something that just blew your mind. I will see you later. Bye!